Good morning, everyone. My report for today is about changing workplace landscape. COVID-19 has altered people's relationship to work, with people now either losing their livelihood and others doing remote work. This remote work, or teleworking, home office, telecommuting, or working from home is not a relatively new concept. In fact, working from home has been part of an independent lifestyle for years. It has often been linked to remote workers, location independent people, and digital nomads. However, the global lockdown has resulted in many companies, employees, and educational institutions around the world dive into more active virtual co-working and other types of digital coordination. With the help of digital tools such as virtual working environments, virtual meetings, and virtual video conferences, the number of people now working from home has rapidly grown exponentially. Truth be told, working from home has accelerated a workplace experiment that has struggled to gain traction before COVID-19 hit. The virus has broken through cultural and technological barriers that prevented remote work in the past, setting in motion a structural shift in work where work takes place, at least for some people. The idea of working from home in and out of office every day also dates back to Industrial Revolution. Before, the people were paid based by how much they made rather than the amount of time they spend at work. However, if office ceases to be the center of work in life at this era of pandemic, the idea set of working hour from 9 to 5 p.m. or 9 to 6 p.m. will become less meaningful. Let us then try to navigate the timeline in history from the first traditional office to the popularity of remote work. So this is the first office of named Florence Uffizi, which is constructed in 1560. The central administrative building of the medical mercantile empire. It is a predecessor to the first ever corporate office. The building of the Uffizi complex was begun by Giorgio Vasari in 1560 so as to accommodate the offices of the Florentine magistrates, hence the name Uffizi or offices. The construction was later continued by Alfonso Parigi and it was completed in 1581. The top floor was made into a gallery for the family and their guests and included their collection of Roman sculptures. On 1760, the Industrial Revolution created social strong momentum towards working outside the home. At the height of industrialization, the same specialization of labor that occurred in factories occurred in the lives of working class families, and this broke up the family economy. Work and home life became sharply separated. Men earned money for their families. In early 1900s, the first iteration of the modern office began to appear in America, birthed in large part by innovations such as telephone, telegraph, typewriter, and public electricity. So in the early 1900s, American engineer Frederick Taylor was the first to design a functional office space. The design was one that resembled a factory with long tables of workers completing repetitive tasks. Quite cramped together, the way of working was efficient, introducing routine and structure to the workplace. The small task assigned meant skill requirement and time learning was low, which allowed a good amount of work to be done. On 1926, Ford Motor Companies adopted a 5-day 40-hour work week. So it was the founder, Henry Ford, of Ford Motor Company, who made a groundbreaking change with no changes or change in wages. However, the industrialists did not do it for employees' comfort or to safeguard their health. His concerns were more of capital oriented. He realized that if companies were to make profit, customers needed to buy things. And in order to want to go shopping, customers needed to relax and enjoy themselves. For this, they needed more time outside work. In 1968, Robert Frost designed the first cubicle. So, Robert Frost was named the father of cubicle. When Probst designed the action office system or the so-called cubicle farms were not really his intent. Probst's own research into developing the action office philosophically was against the cubicle in many ways. The action office system was designed to promote productivity, privacy, and health at the expense of some inefficient use of space. Cubicles are not typically designed to maximize efficient use of space. The efficient cubicle became popular in office design because of the movable wall seen in the Action Office 2 system, which initially saved money in construction and development costs. After the introduction into the marketplace, the Action Office 2 and other office systems were modified to pack in as many employees as possible in the office space. This vision was contrary to Probst's intentions, as he stated that cubicalizing of people in modern corporation is monolithic insanity. In 1970, the Clean Air Act movement, without identifying remote work, explicitly lays significant groundwork for remote work by identifying one of its greatest benefits, zero commute time. The term gridlock is coined within the decade. The enactment of this Clean Air Act in 1970 resulted in a major shift in the federal government's role in air pollution control. This legislation authorized the development of comprehensive federal and state regulation to limit emissions from both stationary sources and mobile sources. On 1973, the telecommunication transportation trade-off is published by physicist Jack Niles, who worked remotely on a NASA communication system. Niles is now regarded as the father of remote work. He coined the word telecommuting and teleworking. He worked for the US Air Force and NASA, where he helped design this space vehicles and communication systems. At the time, he thought of telecommuting. Niles worked for a private company developing real-world applications for space-age defense technologies. His work required Niles to meet regularly with people out in the real world, and one day he got a question. It was a stumper. If you put a man on the moon, why can't you do something about the traffic? The challenge was there was no such thing as personal computer in 1973, although they were already forecasting those in the 70s. Back then, telecommuting meant somehow linking to dumb terminals in homes or centers to mainframe computers at company headquarters. What he settled on was a satellite work center equipped with mini computer linked to a mainframe. The mini computer stored data entered by employees and then dumped into the mainframe later. In 1975, the first computer hits the screen. Personal computer history doesn't begin with IBM or Microsoft, although Microsoft was an early participant in the fledgling of PC industry. The first personal computer industry in 1975 came as kits, like this one you see, Altair 8800, followed by IM's SAI 8080, which is a clone of this one. Okay. In 1979, the OPEC oil embargo is in its sixth year. The Washington Post publishes an article, "Working at Home Can Save Gasoline." General skepticism remains concerning remote work. The same year, IBM allowed 5 of its employees to work from home as experiment. By 1983, roughly 2,000 employees work remotely. So 1983 is the boom of internet. ARPANET adopted TCP/IP on January 1983. From there, researchers began to assemble the networks of networks that became the modern internet. In mid-1980s, JCPenney, an American retail company, allows call center employees to work from home. On 1991, Wi-Fi is invented. Wi-Fi stands for wireless fidelity. Technically, the birthplace of Wi-Fi is in Netherlands. In 1991, NCR Corporation with AT&T Corporation invented a precursor to 802.11 intended for use in the cashier system under the name WaveLAN. In 1995, US Congress approves permanent funding for FlexiPlace, or work-related equipment in the homes of federal offices. In the same year, C-Base, one of the first hacker spaces in the world, is founded in Berlin. Hacker spaces were some of the earliest models of co-working spaces. In year 2000, the DOT Appropriation Act is enacted, requiring all executive agencies to establish telecommuting policies. By 2004, all federal employees can telecommute, provided that they do so without diminished employee performance. Near 2005, the first official co-working space is created by software engineer Brad Newberg in San Francisco co-working space. So Brad had several friends involved in the Spiral Mu space, which was a who was involved in Spiral Mu space while they were hanging out and mentioned his co-working idea that he needed affordable space. Brad could have had the Spiral Muse space 2 days a week for 300 a month within with any extra money that he might make from participants above and beyond 300. The one thing though was that he would have to set up space each of those days and then break everything down as he couldn't leave any permanent additions. In 2008, enterprise social networking tool Yammer launches, which was later acquired by Microsoft for 1.2 billion. Yammer is a premium enterprise social networking service used for private companies or communications within organization. Access to Yammer network is determined by a user's internet domain so that only individuals with approved email address may join the respective network. In 2010, President Barack Obama signs the Telework Enhancement Act, which requires all federal agencies to create policies for eligible employees to work remotely. In 2016, the team collaboration tool Slack grows from 0 to 2013 to 4 million daily active users. In 2018, 70% of the world population works remotely at least once a week, and 53% for at least half the week. In 2019, video collaboration software Zoom reports 50,800 customers with more than 10 employees, a 5-time increase from 2017. And of course, this 2020, the COVID pandemic created a remote work tipping point. Hundreds of millions of people around the world must work from home. Some say that coronavirus accelerated the fourth industrial revolution. So the fourth industrial revolution is a way of describing the blurring of boundaries between the physical, digital, and biological worlds. It is a fusion of advances in AI or artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, 3D printing, genetic engineering, quantum computing, and other technologies. The current state of emergency compels us to consider the necessity of structural shifts in our relationship with the environment and how we conduct ourselves as a global community. The pandemic is forcing all of us to appreciate how much we rely on the 21st century technologies to keep us healthy and to transform economies. The unprecedented context is simultaneously driving us to become far more reliant on breakthrough digital, biological, and physical technologies, and far more inventive about how we can use these emerging technologies to create value in new ways. So, are the winners versus losers of remote working? So, the emerging phenomenon has sparked arguments to evaluate remote work from home advantages and disadvantages not only towards employees but employers. So, what are the wins for remote working? So, of course, remote working saves time from commute. So, we see that the biggest relief with working from home is not to undertake long, tedious commutes. Employees have now saved a lot of hours commuting and has now spent most of their day making full use of the internet, email, and phone. Another is it offers more flexibility. Working in the office is about following a strict rule or office time in and out. And that has changed with working from home. If a company is new to this, the changes are that they will still stick with that schedule of 9 to 6 p.m. But even then, employees will have the option to get an extra hour of sleep and will get to choose their own lunchtime. Also, employees can choose from anywhere, their bedroom, their living space, or anywhere convenient, provided that they have strong internet connectivity in those places. Another advantage is that both employees and employers experience a reduced cost of working. For employees, this takes place in the form of reduced spending time on miscellaneous items without the need to travel to the workplace. Not only are employees able to have more time to sleep, they also have less time on commuting. So working at home also means that employees will have access to more affordable cost of living, or they could cook for themselves compared to dining options in the central business district. Now the downside of the remote work is that being flexible, actually, with the absence of rigid routine, it can put employees off track, and they might end up spending more time on their computer, which is why there's difficulty in unplugging or disconnecting. Another disadvantage is that the new workplace landscape nature of communication differs from face to face. Virtual meetings are not as effective as roundtable conference. Face to face communication is still the most preferred communication. This is something that only one can get in an office space. This also opens up immense opportunities for networking. Apart from business planning, human beings are social creatures and always crave for active conversation. McKinsey and Company has done a research to granularly define the activities and occupation that can be done from home to better understand the future staying power of remote work. They have analyzed the potential of remote work or work that doesn't require interpersonal interaction of physical presence at a specific work site. The range of countries from China, France, Germany, India, Japan, Mexico, Spain, UK, and the United States. They have used MGI or Material Genome Initiative model that's based on occupational information network to analyze more than 2,000 activities, more than 800 occupation, identify which activities and occupations have the greatest potential for remote work. In this exhibit, we see that in order to determine the overall potential for remote work for jobs and sector, we use the time spent on different activities within occupations. We find that remote work potential is concentrated in a few sectors. Finance and insurance is the highest potential, with the three-quarters of the time spent on activities that can be done remotely without a loss of productivity. Management, business services, information technology have the next highest level potential, all of with more than half of employees' time spent on activities that could effectively be done remotely. These sectors are characterized by high share of workers with college degrees or higher. In this graph, we see that remote work varies across countries, a reflection of their sector occupation activity mix. Business and financial services are a large share of the UK economy, for example, and has the highest potential for remote work among the countries examined. Its workforce could theoretically work remotely one-third at a time without loss of productivity, or almost half of the time, but with diminished productivity. Other advanced economies are not far behind. Their workforce could dedicate 20 to 30% of the time to working remotely without losing productivity. In this graph, we see that most workers, some activities during typical day lend themselves to remote work, while the rest of their task requires their on-site physical presence. In the US workforce, we find that just 22% of the employees can work remotely because 3 and 5 days a week without affecting productivity, while only 5% could do so in India. In contrast, 61% of the workforce in the United States can work no more than a few hours a week remotely or not at all. The remaining 17% of the workforce could work remotely partially between 1 or 3 days per week. So the takeaway in this survey is remote work good for productivity? Ultimately, the answer may determine its popularity, especially given the long period of waning labor productivity that precedented the pandemic. preceded the pandemic. So far, there's a scant clarity and widespread contradiction about the productivity impact. Some 41% employees who respond to the survey said that they were more productive than in the office. Employees have gained experience working remotely during the pandemic. Their confidence and productivity has grown, with the number of people saying they would work more productively. A researcher at Stanford University found that only 65% of Americans surveyed said they have fast internet services to support viable video call. And in many parts of the developing country, the connectivity infrastructure is sparse or non-existent. Developing digital infrastructure will require significant public and private investment. For women in particular, remote work is a mixed blessing. It boosts flexibility, not needing to be physically co-located with fellow workers, enables independent work and more flexible hours as well as productivity with less time wasted commuting. Yet, remote work also may increase gender disparity in the workplace, exacerbating the regressive effects of COVID-19. The female workforce in many economies is more highly concentrated in occupational clusters like healthcare, food services, and customer services that have relatively low potential for remote work. So in terms of economic theory, we will define the concepts in economic theory for this topic. Productivity. So productivity refers to the physical relationship between a quantity produced and the quantity of resources used in the course of production. The ratio between the output of goods and services and the input of resources consumed in the process of production. Productivity is the ratio between output of wealth and input of resources used in the process. Whether or not the use of remote work increases firm labor productivity is theoretically ambiguous. The shifting of work from regular office to home has caused changes in workload and productivity, which may lead to reduced salaries for employees, economic loss of the companies, and impact on the national economy. For different occupation, employees who regularly work in an office or workstation show higher workload because their major work can be done at home but require more time due to technical issues. While on-site occupation and many researchers have less workload because their major work cannot be done at home, such as on-site work and experiments. Then the workload and complexity of tasks lead to differences in productivity. In the future, the key problems are how to address the technical issues and strengthen the human-computer interaction to improve the productivity and support on-site work and lab-based tasks to improve the feasibility of work from home. Another is behavioral economics. So it is a cross-disciplinary field applying insights from psychology to understand how people make decisions in the realms such as finance and healthcare. What makes the subject fascinating is that it's often counterintuitive, revealing that we don't always act as a common sense or economic self-interest would predict. However, understanding the biases and heuristics underpinning our behavior, we can design incentives and messages that actually will work. These behavioral biases and heuristics are visible in the public's response to the COVID-19 crisis. For instance, behavioral economists know people have hard time accurately assessing very large number of very small probabilities, which is one reason lotteries are booming nowadays for business. This behavioral shortcomings was evident at the offset of the crisis, with many interpreted public messaging about the new disease mortality rates as evidence of it being relatively harmless. Similarly, the average person had a hard time appreciating the deceptive potential of exponential math, which could transform a trickle of initial caseloads into a devastating wave in the matter of weeks. Another is neurobehavioral economics. Long-term home confinement during the COVID-19 can have negative mental and physical consequences, which in turn can reduce productivity among those working remotely. We sought to delineate factors related to neurobehavioral economics that employers should consider for the employees who are working or teleworking during the current pandemic. Physical and mental well-being are intertwined and are strongly correlated to high productivity at workplace. By integrating the factors of neurobehavioral economics into the work culture, companies will elevate work-related stress leading to improved mental and physical functioning, thus leading to increased productivity. And wage differential. So remote work capabilities allow a firm to access a larger labor market. And this will lead to higher quality matches if workers and firms can find each other and if firms can entice distant workers to work for them remotely. So what's the future of work from home? Even when all of this ends, the idea of social distancing and the fear of another health hazard will continue to loom over the minds of individuals. So work from home is bound to remain as part of almost every organization across the globe. Indeed, by now there's an evidence that comes from researchers, economists, and global leading companies supporting the idea. The current increasing working from home trend to likely continue way past the coronavirus pandemic that was originated in the first place. Tech companies such as Google are leading in the remote work. Google is one of the major companies that has decided to remain remote with no immediate plans to return to the physical office. Google employees do not have to return to their office in San Francisco Bay Area until at least this June 2021. Also, um, the company is Uber is also following Google's work from home adapted model. So the company is even giving 500 stipend to its employees to set up a proper home office. Also in Facebook, many Facebook employees will be able to work from home indefinitely. Will keep on remote work throughout 2020. So that was last year. Twitter told staff also that need they don't need to return to work as if they want to. Alongside increased assurance over hygiene standards, consumers may lean towards facilities with greater separation between workstations, resulting in a redesign of the communal areas that constituted a key attraction for some entrepreneurs and startups. Other economies begin to reopen. Co-working spaces could be used to house non-core departments and to enhance continuity planning for business looking to reduce their brick and mortar footprint. Such space can also serve to optimize employee engagement. The various possible benefits and savings for working companies, employees, and the broader economy associated with increase in remote working, combined with encouraging outcomes from ongoing experiment, will lead to many companies to consider extending work from home measures after the pandemic has subsided. As long as the information and communication technology infrastructure can keep pace, remote working is thus likely to play a significant role in defining a post-pandemic office space ecosystem in emerging market. So as the ripple effect of COVID-19 around the globe, we are being forced to innovate and change the way we work and live. Offices has become less important and work from home has suddenly become mandatory. The sudden need for work from home is driving the digital transformation in the workforce and the evolution of the work environment at an unprecedented speed. Digital transformation covers a wide spectrum, including maximizing the use of modern information technology. Because of COVID-19, it has gained importance and widely recognized and accepted by both employers and employees. The recent transformation of the workforce is a crucial step to digital transformation. Organizations that had enhanced their IT capabilities and remotely engage their employees are in much better position not only to survive this unprecedented circumstance, but to overcome the short and long-term challenges that it will inevitably follow. So the journal review is for the article is digital technology the magic bullet for performing work at home. Lessons learned for post-COVID-19 recovery in hospitality management. The study has resonated to my experience being part of a company that is in real estate industry. On a personal note, our company hotel business has showed only 52% occupancy at the height of the pandemic that shattered our goal of strong first fiscal year operation and affecting the bottom line. In Cebu also, many hotels have ceased operation and had to lay off thousands of workers. The background, due to its inherent characteristic of high personal, the hospitality industry has become one of the most severely affected in the economy by the COVID-19. using digital technologies to perform work while away from the confines of normal workplaces or hours. The term digital work connectivity seems to have suddenly become the magic bullet for enabling large segments of society to function during the outbreak of COVID-19. This paper aims at investigating how the widespread use of digital technologies uh, away from work for work purposes influences hospitality employees' withdrawal behavior. Drawing from resource allocation theories of self-control, digital work connectivity is hypothesized to positively associate with withdrawal behavior mediated by self-control depletion. So it's one of the most severely hit sector. The COVID-19 pandemic suddenly brought about a number of disruptions as to when and where work is undertaken for hospitality employees. The rapid increase of COVID-19 forced many hospitality managers to use digital technologies to perform work from home, termed digital work connectivity. So despite the engagement, Chinese employees demonstrate deteriorating withdrawal indicators, with 67% not engaged or actively disengaged in the workplace. The turnover intention rising to 20%. So the method is modern mediation model of the influence of digital work connectivity and employee withdrawal behavior. Drawing from resource allocation theories of self-control, digital work connectivity is hypothesized to positively associate with withdrawal behavior mediated by self-control depletion. The author further considers relational energy as a critical boundary condition because a key feature of work connectivity as its social embeddedness, i.e., technology use is influenced by socio-cultural factors. So the surge of digital work connectivity is contextualized in an increasing interdependent workplace where employees collaborate for networking. Within this context, a critical resource that employees draw upon is relational energy, defined as the heightened level of physical or psychological resourcefulness generated from interpersonal interaction that enhance one's capacity to work. Given the magnitude of depletion is proportional to the motivational desire to undertake a particular behavior, relational energy provides a theoretical relevant buffer, yet that one that has not been fully considered in the context of the use of digital technologies for work purposes in the hospitality industry. So in the result of the study, the interaction term or significantly and negatively influenced the association between digital work, connectivity, and self-control depletion. The nature of this interaction is illustrated. That shows here that employees who experience a higher level of relational energy, the positive the positive relationship digital work connectivity with self-control depletion was non-significant at a high level of relational energy. So the interaction term significantly influence is associated between digital work and self-control depletion. So the nature of the interaction is illustrated in this figure, which shows that employees who experience a higher level of relational energy, the positive relationship of digital work connectivity with self-control depletion was not significant at high level of relational, whereas it was stronger and a positive at a low level of relational energy. What's the application? Drawing from multi-wave, multi-source data from China, the findings make three contributions to hospitality management research and practice. First, the research shows that connectivity to work actually has the paradoxical effect on prompting greater withdrawal. People use digital technologies in order to remain more connected and engaged at work, yet this practice usually contributes to withdrawal behavior. In this sense, the study directs attention to the neglected behavioral consequence of digital work, connectivity, and clarifies how the extensive use of digital technologies influence withdrawal behavior. The study extends the discussion of technology-mediated communication to resource allocation, contextualized in the emerging ubiquitous working environment where hospitality professionals do not have to be physically present in the workplace to perform task roles. Second, it takes an important step of theorizing how the depleting effects of digital technologies and hospitality employees can be avoided. Here, we theorize that relational energy can be leveraged to minimize the effects of self-depletion. The finding challenges the conventional assumptions surrounding the depleting effects of digital work connectivity by showing that relational energy provides a motivational resource that cancels out its self-control depleting effects. By so doing, it also highlights the underexplored source of human energy and contextualizes digital work connectivity in social context that is particularly relevant for the hospitality industry where the social environment plays an important role. Third, it has a practical implication well beyond the current COVID-19 pandemic, which is likely to result in long-lasting changes in the nature of work and employment. As digital technologies continue to evolve, digital work connectivity is likely to be encouraged for some time to come in the hospitality industry. Thus, understanding the potential depleting effects of digital technologies has practical relevance for managing hospitality employees and their organization in the post-COVID-19 recovery period. So here are the references of the presentation tonight. So this ends my presentation. Thank you everyone for listening.